Greetings and salutations, fellow managers. Kanto 9 stuck the landing of total loss just a bit better than Kanto 6 managed to. And I say this knowing that I might annoy a lot of you who find Heathcliff's Kanto to be your favorite. However, let's face it, you guys called it when you said that the parent aspect of this Kanto would hit me hard. You were not wrong to say that, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Let's face it, parenting can be hard, especially in a place like the city. Add in 5 heads of opposing criminal factions to the mix and you're bound and determined to have some sort of tragedy. And well, that's exactly what we got in so many ways that it's actually quite impressive that anything went right. Now, I know there are so many things that you want me to talk about. The relationship with the Nurse Fathers, their surrogate children, and the stories behind the scenes. How this all shows how Ryoshu became the woman she is today, and how, even with her cut to shreds memories, she held onto something that only a mother could. I also wanted to go on record that I called this Kanto's big twist all the way back at around the halfway point. And later, I'll show you exactly what tipped me off, because it's a detail I don't think enough people caught on to. I think this has been enough preamble, so let's get into both what I think about this Kanto and what it did to me. Alright, now first things first, guys. When I jumped into this Kanto, I was like, alright, I'm tired of whenever I make these videos, you guys are always like, oh, he says he predicted it, but he wasn't able to predict anything. He's full of shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So before I even started with this one, I sat down and I made some live predictions in, well, the live stream. Mind you, nothing is too fancy in these predictions. They're things that a lot of people with a base understanding of the game could make. And with a little bit of a side note, I have not read Hellscreen, but I do know how it ends. So with all that in mind, I made a few predictions pre-Kanto, and here they are. We know Ryoshu's got the whole mom thing going. Even if I just look at the game, she's got that motherly instinct. Gonna have to do something with her child of some sort. We get to see her, you know, the fucking ego we got when the whole thing dropped. Even if I hadn't been paying attention, it would have been dumb for me not to see. We're gonna see her unsheath her sword at some point in here. There's going to be some issues with the thumb. These are all my predictions, so if I'm wrong, don't tell me I'm wrong now. Come back when I do my Kanto 9 review and then shoot me. I'm tired of getting told that you absolutely can't predict anything that's going to happen in this game before it fucking happens, and then when I drop my Kanto reviews. I was definitely wrong with some of my predictions here, and that's to be expected. I am not an expert at everything. We'll come back to my comparison just a little bit later. Now, managers, let me ask you a question, alright? What does Dragon Ball Z and Limbus Company have in common? Well, if you said a lack of actual stakes for the main characters other than what's told in the story, well, then you'd be correct. Congratulations. Don't put the pitchforks down. Give me a second. In Dragon Ball Z, if someone dies, what happens? They go and they collect the Dragon Balls, they resurrect the people, they're fine. In Limbus Company, if somebody dies, what happens? Dante turns back the clock, they come back, and everything is fine. So, the lack of stakes were something that was starting to get a little bit boring when it came to the story. However, the stakes have never been higher. Yes, Sade, who's already been in trouble a couple times, is now, well, partially disarmed and disfigured now. Someone who we always seemed would be safely on the bus in Chiron is kidnapped and used against us. The Distortion team and everyone who is not a sinner who is able to die is either injured, killed, or just taken out in one way or another. Mind you, this is the city, so taken out in another way is like having to go see a psychiatrist for the rest of your life and not being able to be trusted with work because you got that little twitch that doesn't allow you to do science stuff anymore. Due to the fact that most people relate to the higher energy characters like the Nurse Fathers and your sinners in these cantos, means that from a perspective of attachment and enjoying, most people see their emotional baggage or synchronizations attached to said characters. However, without the risks of being taken out like what happens with our sinners, It is truly hard to connect with a lot of them all of the time. However, seeing the relationship that everyone had, the sorrow that Hohenheim goes through, knowing that he lost more people, that actually truly brings a level of emotional attachment to this canto that is higher than most of the other ones. Because let's face it, in most of the other ones, the only people who die are the people that we are after. Speaking of dying, let's do the one thing that I do in all of my reviews, if I can find it, and that's bring up the horror aspect of the canto. And other than losing memories and having to face your past, this one has a weird mashup almost. It's a combination of Cabin in the Woods with the escaped Abnos meets The Strangers.
Hello, your computer has virus.
With the Nurse Fathers coming in and wiping out everyone in the facility. That weird mix works very well. And I know Cabin in the Woods had its own stranger style people in one of the boxes, and you know, the redneck murder hillbilly zombies were technically that slow approach, but it just sync it with me a little bit, guys. You know, outsiders come in and then they set off your Cabin in the Woods style apocalypse event. The spiral, slow, almost Hellraiser like approach to how it slowly but surely digs into you as you try to resist it. All of that just peak horror aspect inside of my favorite Sinners Canto. So just like the Unsevering, I believe I am now deep enough into my review that I can tell you guys when I truly predicted the final twist in the Unsevering. So the biggest fuck up that Project Moon did in this entire canto was both showing us the tongue being severed in Note 4, the mutilated memory, while at the same time giving us the voice of said character. Due Star talks to us and we get to hear what she sounds like, and she sounds like a 50-year-old woman who's been smoking most of her life.
나 때문에? 그건 내가 할 말이지, 요시히데.
But then we come to the part where the golden bowls have been stolen, where we've already faced off against several of the apprentice level threats that have been running around the facility. We've seen almost all of the Nurse Fathers at this point. You've got Valenciana still fighting against Virgilius. You've got Matthias still being a menace. You got Ren still taking out soldiers all over the place. But then we run into Due Star, and she speaks to us.
도저히 못 봐주겠구나. 그 신락 같은 기억 한 줄을. 그건 내가 할 말이지, 요시히데. 여전히 움켜쥐고 있는 모습을.
Let's face it, guys. If you weren't paying attention, if you don't listen to how the voices sound, you never would have noticed until the end of the canto. But I noticed these things, and immediately I thought, they're going to do this, aren't they? They're going to take what is essentially the end of Hell screen and mock it up a little bit. We're going to see Ryoshu kill her own daughter. I knew it at that exact moment. I just didn't know how they had aged her, because let's face it, I didn't know that the safe was this magical time dimension with all of its wimbly wombly timey-wimey bullshit. I just knew that somehow, some way, Ryoshu would be killing her daughter, and it was actually this character. Because remember, once that sword severs something, it doesn't come back, and we've already seen her remove the tongue of said Due Star. Does me making this revelation ruin the whole end of the canto for you? Well, it didn't for me, because I dreaded reaching the end until we get there, both in this video and in the story itself. But considering I mentioned all the Nurse Fathers and, you know, mothers, if you want to go down that route earlier, I figured now would be the exact location for us to, well, talk about how they treated Ryoshu and how their relationships with their current children show us what kind of crap Ryoshu went through in her life. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just your slightly above average gamer dad who happens to have a 2-year-old of my own. The only thing I can truly say that hasn't already been said 1,000 times in this one is that each one of the Nurse Fathers love bombed Ryoshu in a different way. They showed affection in their own special ways, and every single one of them abused her also in their own special ways. Like Matthias, who would go out and just splurge money on her, buying her all these gifts, but would also, if she was not useful, like with Kira, cut her in half if it was his prerogative to do so. Or the Diwa Star, which, I mean, if you look at her, it's her own mother, and that was about as far as everything went with that woman. Yes, Ryoshu picked up a bunch of her habits, but you tend to do that when you live with those who raise you. You pick up habits, hobbies, traditions, and mannerisms from the people that you spend time with when you're growing up. And her mother was no different there either, but her mother was so emotionally distant, so actually full-on resentful, that it caused so much hatred for her own daughter that it bled into whatever kind of relationship they could have ever truly had, due to the fact that she was used, abused, and forced to give birth to a child that she never wanted in the first place. Each one of the Nurse Fathers' apprentices shows their own greed or ambition within them in one way or another. You've got everyone's favorite, I think, in the Lucio character, which was Velocina's apprentice, and let's face it, he just wanted to stab her in the back given an opportunity and take her position as Nurse Father. Oddly enough, Aria, aka the Star's apprentice, was probably the best put together, and I think that's because of Ryoshu's influence on her before she became the new star. Honestly, had due to the weird time warp magic crap, I know it's not magic, had that been able to affect her in a way where she had been the one raising Ryoshu and not been the one raising Ryoshu, that would have been a really weird time causality loop that could have been in this entire canto, but I'm happy they didn't go with that route, honestly. But I don't want to ramble too much about the Nurse Fathers and their relationships and how they were dicks to Ryoshu. Almost every other channel that has done a review on this canto has probably done that. I haven't watched any of them because, let's face it, I don't want to be influenced by them. So until I catch completely up, I've been trying to stay away from a lot of the content that would spoil me for things. But you know what I don't like being spoiled for? The total badass moments that are in this game. And by God, they had a few of them in this one. Little side note before we get into the Monarch transformation, guys, is no, I will not be moving Gregor's weapon on my weapons list because a transformation like that is its own thing. So wherever he was on my weapons ranked list, he is staying there for that purpose alone. However, holy shit, he numbed Valencia, and it was awesome. You could actually feel the fear in her actress's voice when that moment happened. It was just, guys, like, those moments don't happen often in games where you're like, this is really cool, and I wish we could have more like this. Too bad the potential man went back to being himself, and oh my God, guys, just imagine an ID where the full potential of that, the green coin potential of that, is on full display all the time. But Gregor wasn't the only one who got to see his full potential realized, because we got to see future Sinclair, full on Mark of Cain. Oh wait, they removed that. Full on Mark showing Sinclair from the future, possibly a color. According to the people yelling in my chat during that scene, they think he's a future color fixer, which is really cool. During the Second Smoke War, somehow being summoned back using future potential callouts. And oh, dude, Sinclair, or Edward Elric here, future Full Metal Alchemist extraordinaire, showing up and just beating the shit out of everyone's favorite clanker. Us getting to meet the Yellow Flash, I mean Baby B, I mean the Yellow Lance, dude. And also, if Norse mythology doesn't sue Project Moon for the fact that they took both Odin's Eye and Spear into this one canto, you know, joke, they shouldn't. It's just, it was really funny and a cool little nod to some kind of mythology there. With all the cameos, callbacks, pull-ins, amazing moments, and overpowered character show-ups, that this particular Kanto had. It feels like the Avengers Assemble moment. And honestly, I don't feel like the game had the proper build-up for an Avengers Assemble moment. Mind you, in my Intervallo review before this one, I did say that Ryoshu had plenty of build-up showing that the whole motherly thing that was going to be shown in this one. But like an Avengers Assemble moment out of nowhere just kind of feels a bit like grandiose for what was built up so far. However, with the villains being as powerful as they were, this moment was definitely also needed. Stepping back a little bit into the abuse of the Nurse Fathers, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the leashes that were forced on Ryoshu. And no, not those leashes, Clay, get your mind out of the gutter. Let's talk about the first one with the dog and how they injured the dog using a spiral just to get Ryoshu to do her first true mission. And since that point, they used that dog as a leash until they no longer could, and then they turned it into a weapon, really messing with Ryoshu's development even more, to the point that when she went and got Aria and brought her under her own protection, with everyone's favorite Lei Hang telling her that this is going to be her new leash, she actually snapped out of the control that all of the fathers had over her. And this is what set her off on a catalyst. But if we wanted to see the best relationship between a parent and child, I would say it would have to go with the Aria-Ryoshu relationship. Ryoshu didn't really go down any path that was meant to be abusive. Yes, she left her daughter behind, but she didn't know that that safe wasn't safe for other people like it was for her. She thought she was tearing the world around her asunder, including her own mind, just to make sure that her surrogate daughter would be safe until she could return for her. The idioms that Ryoshu still uses to this day are a subtle nod back to her daughter, and honestly, guys, like the fact that she still remembers it after everything that happens and she still uses these idioms proves just a little bit that she hasn't lost all of her memories. Like the ethereal threads that were Aria's existence that Ryoshu was fraying over and over and creating smaller bits of. Her daughter will never truly be gone. In fact, now she coats the blade that severs all. But let's face it, as much as I like my girl Ryoshu, as much awesomeness that this Asian baddie here has brought to the game, she did fuck up quite a bit in this Kanto. Was putting Aria in the safe a mistake? No, not immediately. Had Ryoshu gone through and actually finished off all the Nurse Fathers, which she could have easily done when we look at how she left them all in a different state of disrepair for a certain amount of time, and then gone back, all would have been fine. It was the fact that after killing her mother, leaving Ren with half his face missing, cutting out the eye of Valencia, leaving Matthias slightly disarmed, and I guess pissing Callisto off by cutting up his prized art. He really got off easy, guys. But if you think about it, everyone was left in a state, except for Callisto, where she could have just finished them, grabbed Aria from the safe, brought her with, and just left for good. But no, she stupidly left her in the damn safe. And honestly, that was the biggest mistake that she made. However, in the end, this mistake actually turned out to be better realized than any other story beat in the game so far. When I started this video, I said that this story did Lost better than Kanto 6, and I know that that probably annoyed a lot of you. But let's look at this in an objective way, alright? And I know you guys don't like my take on Kanto 6, but when Kanto 6 happens, Heathcliff loses Kathy, but remembers Kathy for all of time. Hence the remember on his bet. But my biggest gripe with that entire story was the fact that they had figured out that they had both messed up in the end, and yet still went through with the plan. Kathy, having all that power built up, still decided to erase herself from all timelines, instead of redirecting it and fixing it somehow. And I know that might be me being naive, but we don't really know how the golden bows work, and there's nothing saying that she couldn't have done something similar to what I thought. This is a personal mental fan thing for me. I know you guys don't agree. In the unsevering, however, we have Aria, who was made to resent her mom, who thought that she had been abandoned in the safe because time flows differently for all but Ryoshu in that safe. As the Kanto constantly tells us, Ryoshu sees and can perceive time differently and more acutely than anyone else on the planet, and that is why the sword Aria Shiki is meant to be her relic weapon. The fact that after all the loss, all the suffering, taking on her own apprentice, going in and wiping out an entire base full of our allies, that she was able to see that she had made a mistake, that in her heart she knew that her mother had never truly abandoned her, and that she was willing to come back, even if it was later than she knew she was going to. Aria saw all this and saw her mother literally falling apart and trying to remove everything that made her, her. The sword that severs memories was unsheathed and just wildly cutting everywhere. 2 apprentices were sacrificed to the power of this blade, in a really cool homage to how their names were slowly being erased as the fight went out. And Aria essentially lay dying on the ground. But even in death, she managed to pass her spirit to her mother, managed to reconnect a chain that had already been severed once, and through that managed to sheath the sword that severs all within her own chrysalis, within her own existence, stopping her mother's rampage and pulling her back to the side of the sinners. Kanto 6 made it so even after the mistakes were found out and were brought up and everyone knew what was going on, that the planned action was still pulled out. Kanto 9 took a mother and daughter's love and made it immortalized around a weapon that the mother will always use. Yes, Ryoshu doesn't quite remember everything about her daughter and what drove her to begin with when it came to joining Limbus Company, but she has this sense of her existence still. It's not a perfect fix to the dread that I was feeling when I was thinking, well, they're going to kill the daughter. They're going to kill the daughter. She's just going to kill her daughter. This is going to be annoying. Honestly, guys, knowing how Hellscreen ended kind of made this a way easier prediction for me to make. And there were things I couldn't predict, like the parallel between the burning wagon at the end of Hellscreen and the burning building you fight Aria and Rin in. But, you know, certain things can't be predicted. You can't really predict the scene that you're going to be in when the end comes. However, the fact that the idiom still exists means there's still a bit of Aria there that Ryoshu still remembers, because let's face it, she was the one who taught her to speak in idioms. I may not be a mother, but I am a father, and I know that I would go intensely, insanely mad if something had ever happened to my daughter. Even if something in the future happens, as long as I'm alive, like Ryoshu, I would want my daughter to be protected in the best way that I would know how to. So this is why I can see what Ryoshu did as not the worst thing imaginable, even if it was done without the proper knowledge on how to actually properly protect things. Okay, guys, the deep stuff's done. Let's do one little... I need to mention that the 9 literature guys are still annoying, and while we as the Limbus Company and the LCE, all of the little side branches of what we got going on here, while we keep getting weaker, they keep picking up the messes behind us and getting stronger. And I'm waiting for when we finally get a go head to head against these guys, considering every single one that we've beaten seems to be coming into their folds and becoming stronger as such. And well, guys, Kanto 9 did a lot of development in the story. We got to see so many of our characters, so many of our sinners grow stronger. We got to see their full potentials unlocked. We got to see a bunch of our side characters die. And what did I think of it all? Well, it was a pretty good Kanto. It was definitely fallen into my top 3. If it's not my number 1, it's definitely my number 2 now. With me having all these Kantos done, I will probably do a ranking system on them soon. And then when I finish the last 2 intervalos, I'll rank those ones also. Just like in the book, Ryoshu comes from her, or in the book, his. Their love for their daughter drives a lot of what they do, and it also drives the tragedy for what happens to them at the end of their own story. And while I still don't believe that Project Moon handles loss in the best ways, I do believe having some sort of wrap up inside of the story was nice this time. I mean, Kanto 6 had the loss of a loved one, Kanto 7 had the loss of a father figure, and Kanto 9 now has the loss of a child, and technically a bunch of father figures, but I think they did this one a lot better than they've done a lot of the other ones in the past. And that's really all I have to say about this one, guys. It was a really good Kanto. They did well. You guys mentioned some of the pacing issues in the past, and I can see it considering the last 4 nodes took me over 2 hours to get through. I can see the nodes having pacing issues, but I don't really know how I'd fix those myself, so I'm not going to go into detail about it. If you guys like this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, check out some of the back catalog. We've got so much stuff on this. We've got stuff on Dark Souls, stuff on fighting games. We got a whole bunch of stuff for any of you guys that want to come check it out. Don't forget to join the membership, guys. I'll be dropping chapters of my own book on there soon, so you guys could rip me a new one and tell me my writing style sucks ass too if you want to. Don't forget to join the Discord so you guys will be able to influence how I do things on the channel, what videos I go on to. I do have a section in there for that. But with all that being said, guys, like always, be good to each other. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.